Buckle up, Buster, because you've just activated the Better Banking Podcast with your host, Big Time E.B. Foster, and your producer, small time but available, Producer Rune. Today's guest is Amber Miller from GreenPath Financial, here to tell you how GreenPath can smooth the financial road, even for those with challenged credit. She'll also bring you up to date on the latest developments in the student loan environment. All that and more on the Better Banking Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Better Banking Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Foster, and behind the scenes, as always, thank goodness, is Producer Rune. How are things in the control booth, Producer Rune?
Oh, everything's great here. In fact, our former VP of Lending, Greg Marcella, is here.
What's going on?
Just in time for our earthquake and tsunami drill.
What is this?
It's a doozy. Ooh. Holy moly, that scared the out of me. Don't scare Uncle Eric.
I thought it was something else.
Another successful test.
Earth shaking. Let's get to it. The Better Banking Podcast is brought to you by Gain Federal Credit Union to fulfill our promise to share our financial knowledge for your financial gain. Now, I'm not the expert, and I think that's obvious, but I know the experts, and we bring you the experts to help you manage your money better with useful information and resources. We also share our insights on how credit unions work and how they are different from banks. That's a lot to talk about, so let's get started. We are delighted to have on the podcast today Amber Miller from GreenPath Financial Wellness, where she serves as a partner experience manager. That's quite a title. Welcome to the podcast, Amber.
Thank you, Eric. Good to be here.
We had spoken earlier on an earlier episode with our corporate trainer, Jasmine Jimenez, about GreenPath Financial. But from your perspective as an insider and an employee, can you tell us about GreenPath Financial and what you do?
Absolutely. I love talking about what we do at GreenPath because what it really boils down to is we change people's lives. So here at GreenPath, our mission is to empower people to lead financially healthy lives. I know that sounds a little bit broad or vague, but that's intentional. Here at GreenPath, we really recognize that a financially healthy life looks different to each of us. What we do all day, every day is to really help people understand and identify what a financially healthy life looks like for them, and then educate and empower them on what they can do to get there. So this is really life-changing for a lot of people who have never really had that conversation or really sat down to really think about this, and not only think about what a financially healthy life looks like, but get concrete steps to take to get to what that looks like for them.
How do you give that knowledge? How do you impart that to our members?
Yeah, a couple of ways. We have kind of two buckets that we offer at GreenPath. One is really just a variety of online financial education resources, and anyone and everyone can access those at greenpath.com/partner/gainfcu. And we've got online financial education courses on a variety of topics. We've got webinars, articles, podcasts, worksheets, guides, tons of different resources that are designed to really resonate with just about any learning style. However you learn, we want to make sure that you've got something there that can be of value to you. We also offer free confidential financial assessments where someone can reach out and talk one-on-one with one of our financial wellness experts. Again, it's free, it's confidential. I know that it can feel a little bit intimidating to talk about your finances. You know, this is something that has a lot of shame and stigma wrapped up, and sometimes there's trauma and other things involved. So at GreenPath, we are really serious about getting the best possible people employed here. We do a lot of empathy training, a lot of non-judgmental communication training. I can tell you that whatever you've got going on in your financial situation, we've heard it and more. So we're not here to judge. We're really here to, again, help understand what's going on for you, where you want to be, and then work towards helping you get there.
I wanted to also talk about your role as the partner experience manager. Tell me what you actually do for our members as a partner experience manager.
Good question. So I love being asked this question because one of my favorite parts of this role is that but every day is going to look different. So at the core, my main responsibility is to really manage some of the partnerships GreenPath has with credit unions like Gain Federal Credit Union. We currently partner with between 550 and 600 credit unions throughout the country to really provide the resources and the education that we provide to as many people as possible. So I'm really responsible to provide training, support, resources, really to make it easier for our partner credit unions to spread the word about GreenPath, to spread the word about the resources and the education that are available. So I do a variety of financial education webinars, trainings with credit union staff, interviews like this, a lot of meetings and emails and marketing work, really to strategize and brainstorm and get creative to get financial education to really as many people as possible. So at the end of the day, my main role is to really just work with our partner credit unions to further expand the reach of GreenPath's resources to as many people as possible.
So GreenPath offers financial counseling. Are you one of the counselors, or do you have a group of people that work as financial counselors?
Yeah, so I started my career at GreenPath as a counselor. That's how I spent my first half of time here that I've been here so far, but I'm no longer counseling actively at this time. We have a group of around 100 people that hold those certifications and are on the phones day in and day out talking to the people we serve.
So, for instance, if I'm a member and I have a lot of high-interest credit card debt, I could give you folks a call and get some advice and perhaps get set up on a plan to lower my interest rates? Is that what we're talking about?
Honestly, we talk to a lot of people about debt. They've been making their monthly payments on a monthly basis, but maybe they can't do much more than that minimum. And with those high interest rates, they just feel like they're treading water, and they just, struggle to see a way past that, a path forward without that debt. So we can, get a good picture of the situation, what other goals the individual maybe has outside of getting that debt paid off. And then we're going to explore and talk through pros and cons of any option that makes sense for them. So we do offer what's called a debt management plan, where we can work with the creditors directly to get often lower interest rates, but better terms to make it more manageable to get that debt paid in full within a 5-year time period. So if that's an option that makes sense, we'll talk through that. Maybe it's going back to the credit union to look at a consolidation loan. If that's something that hasn't been explored yet, we'll send you back there with the education and the empowerment you need to have that conversation and go through that process. Maybe there's other options that you've found late at night Googling when you can't sleep because this debt is keeping you up and you want to know more. We'll absolutely talk through those options and just help you have the education and the empowerment you need to make a decision on what's best for you. We're not here to tell anyone what to do. We're here to give you what you need to make a confident decision that you have a path forward that's going to get you where you want to be.
Ready to make your home ownership dreams come true? Look no further. At Gain, we make it convenient and easy to get a loan to help you purchase or refinance your home. Visit gainfcu.com/mortgages and let us help you make that home buying dream a reality. Not ready to buy just yet? You can still keep an eye on the home loan market. Visit gainfcu.com/rates to set up automatic notifications and know when rates change. That's gainfcu.com/rates. Gain Federal Credit Union is insured by the NCUA and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 407810.
Housing services. You folks offer foreclosure prevention services. There are a lot of people who are struggling to make mortgage payments right now. Tell me a little bit about that service.
Absolutely. So with the foreclosure prevention especially, keeping a roof over someone's head is top priority. That's number one here that we want to get resolved when someone's concerned about that. So reaching out for that, we want to, again, get a full picture of the financial situation. We want to make sure that we're providing holistic solutions and coming up with a sustainable path forward. So we'll start out by just kind of going through income, expenses, what's going on with someone. We'll get some details about the mortgage. Different types of mortgages have different options. So we want to make sure that we're talking about the options there. And then we'll talk through what our recommendations are based on the situation, coming up with a plan that would be sustainable. Something that a lot of people find value in is that we'll get on the phone with you and do a conference call to the mortgage company if it's appropriate. If you've got questions or if you have an option that seems like is going to be a good fit, we'll help you make that phone call to explore moving forward with that with the mortgage company. That conversation can be pretty intimidating for a lot lot of people, and there's a lot of jargon, especially when you're talking to some of the big mortgage companies. So having a neutral party, an advocate who's in that world a little bit that can understand that jargon and can just help, make sure that things sound right, make sure that nothing doesn't sound fishy there, is something that a lot of people find a lot of value in.
Another hot topic that's been in the news is student loan forgiveness discussions. Can you bring our audience up to date on the history of the student loan environment?
Just like you said, there's been a lot of back and forth going on with student loans really over the past 3.5, 4 years is really when it kind of heated up. Right when the pandemic started, the federal student loan payment pause first went into effect. That feels, again, like an eternity ago. Thinking back to March 2020, interest rates were put at 0% for federal student loans. It was a temporary thing. I don't remember the exact time frame that it was originally in place for, but it wasn't expected to last for long. But this was just designed to help people out while we saw how this pandemic shook out. Momentum again kind of further picked up about student loan forgiveness around the 2020 presidential election. Student loan forgiveness kind of had a front seat in a lot of the debates and campaign platforms. And then really the next couple of years, that payment pause just kept continuing to be extended as the pandemic kind of ebbed and flowed. There were new variants and things kept happening there. So that payment pause just kind of kept continuing to be kicked down the road a little bit. And then the next really big pivotal moment was in August 2022 when President Biden announced a plan to forgive up to $10,000 in student loan debt for borrowers who made under a certain income, or up to $20,000 for those eligible borrowers who had received a Pell Grant during their time in school. The plan was eventually struck down by the Supreme Court. Just prior to the Supreme Court's decision there, earlier in June, Congress actually passed legislation that prevented any more extensions of that payment pause as the national COVID-19 emergency had officially come to an end. So at this time, it kind of happened hand in hand where that forgiveness plan was struck down. It was not going to be allowed to continue at the same time as it really being set in stone that these payments are finally going to be resuming after 3.5 years on pause. So it was announced that interest would start accruing again as of September 1st, 2023, and then everyone's payments would resume being due in October of 2023.
So if I have a student loan payment due, how should I resume making the payments? Is there a strategy that I should be employing?
For people who were on payments prior to the payment pause, if they were on an income-driven plan, that payment will resume and has resumed for most of us already. There will be the expectation to recertify that income-driven payment within the next year or so. Typically, you have to update your household size, your income, and that income-driven payment plan may change. So for people who are in a situation where maybe things are worse financially for them than they were prior to the pandemic, or maybe their household size has increased, you can absolutely recertify early and see if there's another payment plan option that's maybe a little bit more affordable for you right now. For others who maybe hadn't been making payments and maybe this is their first payment, my husband is one of those. He finished his degree just prior to the pandemic starting, and so we have just made his first payment this month, even though he graduated 4 years ago. The way it all shook out, we've been in that boat with him where he's had to make his first payment. If you weren't on an income-driven plan prior, the default is for you to be enrolled in what's called the standard plan, where they basically divide your balance plus interest by 10 years, and you're on that payment that's designed to repay that in full within that 10-year time frame. Usually, for many people, that's the least affordable payment option, so that is the default, though. So if you got your student loan statement and you're like, man, this payment is a lot, I'm not sure how sustainable this is going to be for me moving forward, even if you were able to kind of scrounge it up this month and maybe next month, you do have options. And there's a lot of great resources on the federal student aid website, which is studentaid.gov. My hands down favorite student loan resource is what's called the Loan Simulator, which can be found there at studentaid.gov. And what this is a tool that it'll walk you through and ask some questions about your financial situation, about your goals. Do you want to pay your student loans off as soon as possible, or do you want to pay as little as possible every month because you've got other things going on? And then it will recommend a payment plan for you based on the information you provided. And it'll tell you why it recommended it. It'll give you an overview of the estimated payment amount, how long it would take to pay off the debt under that plan, the estimated total amount you would pay with interest there. It's a really, really great resource to explore all your options side by side and figure out what option makes the most sense for you, not just in your budget right now, but in your longer term financial goals as well.
Amber, tell us how GreenPath can help our listeners with student loans.
With federal student loans, a lot of those rules are pretty set in stone by the government. But if you're still looking at those monthly payment amounts across the options that you're eligible for, and you're just like, I don't know how this is going to work, reach out to GreenPath. Student loans are one piece of the financial puzzle. There might be wiggle room with other pieces of your financial situation that you might not have thought about. So our counselors are really designed to dig in and get creative and help you kind of think about other places where there might be room. So reach out. We'll get curious with you. We'll get creative with you and see what wiggle room there might be to make that student loan payment fit into the puzzle a little bit more smoothly and hopefully not derail other financial goals you want to be working towards.
And how about parents who are doing this for the first time? Is there something they should know before they even start?
One of the biggest temptations that, my husband and I fell victim to when he went back to school full time a few years ago is the temptation to, use those student loans for living expenses and other things if you're able to borrow more than you need to cover school costs. It's really easy to kind of kick that can down the road in the moment and think, oh yeah, this isn't that much. It'll help us cover this. But longer term, the ramifications of that can be huge. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars when you're looking at interest and how this really amplifies over time. So I think really my biggest advice if you're looking at how much to borrow, how to start this is really, being really clear on what those boundaries are kind of for yourself, whether it's you as a borrower or a parent talking to your student about what this could look like and really thinking about the long-term effects. And then when it comes to just those who are making payments for the first time, I think that the biggest advice I have is that communication is key. Federal student loans are a whole different ballgame when it comes to type of debt. They typically can't be even discharged in something like a bankruptcy. They're not going to go away. So even if you are not sure that you're going to be able to make a payment, whether it's temporary or if you've got something going on financially, reach out to your servicer. They may have options you may be eligible for. But just really communicate. Don't ignore the student loans. Make sure that you've got a plan and make sure that, again, if you can't make that payment, you communicate with your servicer to see what options you're eligible for. If student loans go into default, they can hold you back from a lot of things, going back to school, maybe purchasing a home, depending on the type of mortgage. So it's really, really just imperative to not ignore those student loans. Make sure you have a plan, make sure you communicate and know what's going on with them.
Amber, how do GAIN Federal Credit Union members reach GreenPath and reach an advisor?
So a couple of ways there. If you want to learn a little bit more, dive in a little bit deeper to what that conversation may look like, you can check that out at our website, which you can get to from gainfcu.com/greenpath. There's also a variety of financial education resources there, or you can give us a phone call. You can reach out at 877-337-3399, and we can get you connected to someone right away.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Amber, from your experience, how are credit unions different from banks?
Yeah, so credit unions, in my understanding and in my experience, I work with a lot of different credit unions all day, every day, and credit unions are really focused in on, of course, that same mantra of people helping people. And that's part of why GreenPath and credit unions work so well together. We're all on the same team here to help people identify what their better life could look like, identify a better way, what that path forward could be. So credit unions, banks, really what it boils down to is credit unions, in my experience, are really just focused on getting creative, diving in deeper, and really putting the members, the people they serve, at the center of everything that they do.
I agree.
All right.
That's a lot of great information you gave our listeners, Amber, and we thank you for coming on the Better Banking Podcast.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
And that's all for this episode. Please send your comments, questions to podcast@gainfcu.com, and be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you, Amber Miller from GreenPath Financial Wellness, and to producer Rune in the control booth, running things from afar. How are things in there?
Oh man, we just got a shipment of Podgenics Total P, and my compression filter feels like $1,000,000. I've got more energy in the control booth and and in the editing room. I feel like I could produce 1 million podcasts.
What about the compliance department?
They'll love it too.
What's it called again?
Podgenics Total P. Don't ask your doctor if Podgenics Total P is right for you. That killjoy will just say no. Just start taking the stuff. I did, and I feel great.
Join us next time because, as you know, there's a lot more to gain.
The views and opinions expressed by hosts and guests of the Better Banking Podcast are not those of Gain Federal Credit Union. Gain Federal Credit Union is insured by the NCUA and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 407810.
Gain better banking.